Hey, you guys, this is Mike and Angie,
Hey.
and we're here to talk about our relation. I was going to say our relationship, the way we met, and it's quite a testimony. And we just pray that it blesses some of anybody out there who is in the same boat, either side of it, really, because we both have totally different sides of the way we met. And um, yeah, so
And I pray that it encourages some people because I was 43 when we got married, and that was
yeah,
my first marriage. And so I had a long time of singleness and waiting on the Lord.
yeah,
And so, anyway, we wanted to share our story, our
yeah,
love story,
yeah, yeah.
and the goodness of God.
And the goodness of God, right? Because so for me, I'll just start is I I wasted a lot of time. I mean, God uses it all, but I have a long testimony and I've got it on YouTube. So you can listen to that if you want. But coming out of the world that I was in and then, surrendering to the Lord, I pretty much had thought, okay, God's given me a second chance at life. And so I am not going, I'm not pursuing, a relationship because I'd already been through, I had divorced twice and all of that. So I was sold out to the Lord and me and Jesus. I said, Jesus, if it's me and you for the rest of my life, I'm good. Really. And I meant it. I was 40, I forget how old I was, but so I was older
Mm-hmm.
to where, I was like, I'm good because I was so thankful to the Lord. And so, oh gosh, I'm trying to figure out a good way to lead up to it. I kind of like the way your story went when you were,
First,
yeah,
okay,
maybe the
well,
shortened version.
tell the ones part if you. Well, we were okay. Okay.
Okay, well, yeah, when I was single, let me just say that. When I had a guy, one of my best friends was Kevin Johnson, who is a missionary in Honduras. Hi, Kevin. If I don't know if he'll ever see this, but me and him were both single, sold out to the Lord, but single. And he said to me one day, "Who would you in our church, in our fellowship, marry if you know, no holds barred, whatever. There was nothing." And I said, "Well, probably Angie McCrae," but I didn't feel like I had a chance with her because she was up here and I was down here. It was just we were both extremely different, if nothing else. And so that was funny that, I remembered that after we got together and after we started dating and of course once we got married, I was like, gosh, I can't believe that it was such a good testimony to the goodness of God and to the miracle that the way it all happened. And um
So, men, shoot for the moon, marry up.
shoot for the
I
moon.
mean, I'm
Yes,
not
yes,
saying that.
exactly.
That's what he said.
Right. That's basically, yeah. You never know. Like, no, I wasn't like some white collar, even though she was kind of looking for, she was hoping maybe for somebody a little more financially stable. And I'm praying and believing God's going to, little by little, I own my own business. Um, so yeah, let me hear your part of it, honey.
Okay. So I
The
was
vision. Yeah.
mostly serving the Lord, um, real like hardcore when I was in my teens, on fire for the Lord, and then went into YWAM, Youth with a Mission, and then I went to a Bible college for 4 years, and then I was a school teacher in a Christian school, and then by the time I was 27, most of my girlfriends and friends were getting married and starting their families, and I'm like really getting discouraged because I mean, I was all in as far as sold out to the Lord. I didn't make a career I didn't make my career a
Ministry.
priority. It
Oh,
was ministry, and serving in my church, in my community, and that was in Georgia at that time. So my family had moved back to North Florida, and so I moved back there in 1999. Started attending New Life Christian Fellowship, and I was attending singles events and things like that in the spirit filled Christian, kind of community in Jacksonville, and not finding anybody. And I was really discouraged. To be real and to be honest, I was kind of hurting and like, Lord, I'm giving my whole life to you, and marriage is your idea. So what's up? I'm not asking for something that's bad. I'm asking for something that's beautiful. So it just wasn't happening for me. So then I started compromising, and a friend from work had introduced me to a guy who was single and wanted a family kind of thing, but was anyway, so it wasn't spiritually where I was at, but he was a great person. And so we went on some dates, and next thing I know, I am pregnant with my now daughter. And that was the biggest blessing of my life. But he and I just never quite uh, clicked. And I started realizing I had to get real serious with God again. I went to counseling with my church at the time, which was New Life Christian Fellowship, and he came a few times, but I had come from real hardcore being sold out, and he was like, "You take God way too seriously," and I was like, "Wow, how can you take God too seriously?"
Right.
So, a Christian woman elder in another church that I had had a long history with said to me, "Angie, two wrongs don't make a right. You
Mm.
don't have to marry this guy out of
Thank
some
God for
religious
her.
duty."
Yeah.
And it really set me free. So, because I had my grandmother, who was Southern Baptist, wonderful Christian woman, telling me, you really should get married. And so we considered it, but me and her dad, but we didn't. And I think that was best.
Mm.
Um, but she was such a blessing. So I ended up moving back in with my parents. I'd lived on my own. I had a career starting. I was going to pursue law school. I mean, I had a lot of high achievements I was looking to do. And then I moved in with my parents, which was in little north of Jacksonville. And my daughter, I had already picked out a Christian school for her to go to, and that was Faith Christian Academy here. And she was in that school. And then in 2009, I felt like the Lord was like, "Okay, you need to go to this church that hosts that school, Living Waters World Outreach Center." Great people. We knew the pastors, we knew some of the people. So I started attending that church. And then I was doing a lot of online or I would say online meeting Christian guys, like just putting myself out there to try to find a Christian guy. And none of it ever worked out. And then we knew each other for 3 years at
Yeah.
that church.
Well, when you said that, reminded me of that story I loved. It's just great. When she was living with her parents, for some reason, her mother knew that I needed work, I think. And so she said, "Oh, I have these flower beds you can weed," or something like that. And so I was over there at their house weeding these flower beds when Angie came walking out one time, dressed to the nines, smelling like $1,000,000. And I'm like, "Oh, hey, Angie, where are you going?" And she was like, "Oh, I'm going to meet this guy." And I honestly I was, and that's not me, I'm being honest here. I'm not trying to brag, but I was so in the spirit that I honestly prayed, not with her right then and there, but I said, "Oh, that's awesome. I hope he's the one." And then even after she left, I prayed. I was like, "Lord, if this guy's the one, let it be in Jesus' name." I was sincerely praying. And I just believe sometimes, when you're in that, when you're selfless, when you're caring more about the other person, that you're going to be better off no matter what. I thought, "Oh, yeah, this girl would be great. I mean, that'd be amazing." But I wasn't in that spirit. I was in the spirit of the Lord, where I was like, "You know what, Lord? If that's the guy for her, bless her." And So yeah, that was one of the kind of funny story.
Well, that day ended up being a disaster.
Well, yeah, it didn't work out obviously for her. Yeah.
Ugh. Thankfully, I'm glad God's protection was over me all the way.
Yeah. So then, I mean, just fast forward to, for me, would just say that she had a house that she had purchased and needed a lot of help.
A few years later, it's
Yeah.
because my parents were gracious enough to let, and just so loving. It was just such a God thing for me and for them and for my daughter especially. Like she grew up being so loved and everything. So that was for 10 years we lived together with them, and it was just such a treat, such a treasured time. Like some cultures live multi-generationally, and I can see such benefit to that.
Yeah.
Because I was able to get her out of daycare when we moved in, and then let my mom was able to take care of her while I went to work, and I had a great job at an accounting firm, and she was in a Christian school, so it helped me save expenses so I could put her in a Christian school, and it was just wonderful. But then I forget what the year, I want to say 2013, we had to sell that house, and I was looking for a place to live. So I was thinking, gosh, God, if I could only just get, because I had already lived on my own, but now this is different when you have a child, and there's a lot more expenses. And I had my college education I had a bachelor's degree in Christian education, elementary ed, and so I was strong convictions about education and getting my child separate from the world, raising her differently. I was very strict. That would be a whole different story. I mean, I'd say very strict, but I also bathed her with so much love. And even though I had wanted to go to law school, I love to say that the Lord kind of hijacked me and put in me this in just insatiable thirst for the law of God. I began to study the Torah. I began to study Hebrew roots.
No, didn't have nothing to do with us.
No, but it's me.
Oh, okay.
And so, yeah. And so it was me. And so I had I had this just insatiable thirst to study his law and that. So then I'm trying to think, because you totally threw me off.
Well, I just was,
Trying to stay focused on our story, but that's part of me. So then
so you had your own house.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
help.
fast forward, God ended up giving me a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house rather than this little studio, which my faith was only that big, but his goodness was that big. Yeah. And so we're in this house, and it needed some work because it was a little bit old, but it was beautiful, beautiful little farmhouse on an acre of land.
Yeah.
I mean, we were able to get chickens and all this stuff. So, but it needed some work. And so I didn't have any money. I'm a single mom, and I'm thinking of what guy in the church could maybe help me. And you were the one I could think of, because it needed to be somebody that I could trust and who was willing, who was like, had the time to paint and put in a dishwasher and, do some handyman stuff. So we started spending tons of time together.
Yeah.
But it was so pure. Like,
it
we
really
had a
was.
small group of us.
Yeah. I was guarded because of that, because it was so like, I literally thought of her like as a sister in the Lord, honestly. Up until a certain point, of course, when you're spending that much time together, and then, we ended up, well, yeah, I'll leave that part to you if you want. She was sitting in this very room.
Okay. Yeah. So I, well, we were spending a lot of time together, but still, it was not on my radar whatsoever.
It wasn't on mine either, as far as.
Yeah. You were like, God, I've been married twice, and I'm happy about being single. Not for me. I was still looking, but not actively looking. I was in hot pursuit of the Lord again, because there was this church in Jacksonville that was having worship nights and all this stuff. We had Living Waters, which is such a solid and such a grounded church, but there was just a few of us single people that were going on Friday nights and whatever nights to do extended worship and things like this. And so there was a group of us would get in somebody's minivan and go over there together. And it was so much fun. And I was in, but yet, okay, so I had a job, and me and Isabella were living in this house that was a whole cool story all by itself. And I was praying and just thanking the Lord. I remember, because the story of this getting this house exceeded my expectations of what God was going to do for me, which is so God, there's, hang on to that. So I literally like knocked on the wall, just like, there's a real house. There are real walls. I am in this beautiful home on an acre of land. I never thought that this could happen. His favor on me was immense. And as that happened, it was just this moment, like as if God was sitting in the room with me. And he said, by the way, I want to talk to you about your husband. I was like, well, it's about time. I'm really interested to hear what you have to say, since I've been asking you for about 20 years. And he immediately, I saw Mike's face in my mind's eye. And I was like, huh? Because I just really, so in purity, I thought of him as a friend and someone I could trust. And that was it. And so then he took my heart, the Lord took my heart in his hands and went, boop. And it was like, what? And I looked and I saw that it was good.
Thank you, Jesus. God is good.
Yes,
You're
he
so
is.
good, Lord.
Yes.
Thank you.
Well,
thank you.
I was like, wow. It just shows of something of the, I guess, like the supernatural, when you see something the way God sees it.
Mm-hmm.
You know how Isaiah says, God's ways are not our ways, his thoughts are not our thoughts. Well, every now and then he shows us his thoughts. Mm. And you're like, oh, I never saw it that way. Mm. Had been thinking so carnally. Mm-hmm. So from that moment on, 2 weeks went by and I was getting all this flood of emotions, like I started to fall in love. I thought, oh my gosh, I'm infatuated. I'm feeling nervous around him. I'm feeling like you do when you're falling in love. And I was like, I don't know if he's feeling this, but I knew he was attracted to me, but it was still, there was a guardedness, which I was thankful for, the respect and everything. But then finally, I had asked my friend Susie, who was living with me at that time. And she's like, I saw this long time ago. You guys make a great couple. I told you this. And I'm like, you did? And then I asked a few other friends, and they were like, I've been wondering if you were dating. And so I asked Mike, finally, 2 weeks later, I said,
we're about to lose battery power on the phone.
Oh, I said, Mike, have you ever thought about being more than friends? Because everyone is asking if we are dating. And he said,
I didn't say anything. I was silent for a long time because I was freaking out. I'm like, I can't believe this. But we may have to continue this later, honey, because my phone is literally seconds away from. We did not realize the battery is 4%.
This might hold out.
Do you want to keep talking and I'll describe the charger?
Sure.
Okay.
But if I do that, I might go into preach mode.
Go ahead.
Well, so, okay, we're having a little commercial here while we get some battery juice. And this is totally off topic, but hey, it's a commercial. I remember being at New Life Christian Fellowship in one of the singles conferences, and we had a speaker come, and he gave everybody, but for me, it was the best advice as a single person that I had ever received. And he said, okay, first of all, you know how single people, you always have your list. I don't think that's going to work.
No, I forgot.
He said, become your list. become your list.
Preach.
So we could wrap this up real quick. So basically, me and Mike had a conversation. He stared at me forever, like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe this is really happening." And then he asked my parents if he could date me. So we dated for a year and a half before we got married. During that time, you moved down to Naples and lived with Jay and Amanda Bowerman, or near there. You had your own trailer, but you lived there working for his construction company, and they're now dear friends of ours. But we thought we might move there, but God clearly showed that the school and my parents and family were living here in Fernandina Beach. So this is really where we needed to put roots down. And then on May 16th, 2015, we got married, and it's been nothing but bliss ever since.
Look at that, was perfect timing, honey. Wow.